Welcome to the HRIS Careers podcast, recording live from the beautiful studios in downtown Omaha, Nebraska. I certainly appreciate you being here. I'm going to call this a short-isode, and the subject is why employees smuggle AI into work. So, not my headline. I read a lot of different HR, HRIS periodicals, and I found this. It might have been an IRIM newsletter, but it was a link to an article by the BBC. The author his name was Sean McManus, and he was examining why is it that employees smuggle AI into work, and that's something as HR technology professionals we are probably all dealing with ourselves and have probably had to consider the ethical implications of doing it ourselves. As our companies are slow to adopt AI policies. If you have comment on the subject or would be willing to come on the podcast to talk about it in your organization, don't have to get specific, but just in general, we would certainly appreciate that. Reach out to me at troy.wallace@HRISCareers.com. So I wanted to explore all that, but before we get into that, I want to announce, I'm not going to announce who the guests are, but we do have a real deal compensation professional coming on. And then we also have what I'm going to call a chief financial officer whisperer, a guy who's been a chief financial officer himself, runs a media company around that. So if you do have any questions for them, you can go to HRISCareers.com. If you go to the podcast page, there's a way to submit questions or just email them directly to me at troy.wallace@HRISCareers.com. All right. So let's talk again why employees smuggle AI into work. So if you're like me, you're probably getting tired of the term AI. Now the new word is agentic.
Not a word now. Quiet.
It sounds like someone doesn't want to commit that a lot of these tools don't actually have true independent agents. So it's almost like when somebody diminishes the importance of something by adding an ish to it. All right, so let's get into it. And also I'm going to share a personal anecdote, kind of a real time issue I had with a consulting client, both in their internal processes and, some limiting things on what we could or could not do with AI. Artificial intelligence, obviously it's been making waves. Not all organizations are completely ready to embrace these tools, at least certainly not openly. So this recent article I read in the BBC, it talked about a lot of employees are resorting to using these AI tools covertly, a phenomenon we're calling smuggling AI into work. Number one, what is this? I guess I'll call it, shadow AI. So this BBC article highlights a significant number of employees are using AI tools like ChatGPT or some of these development tools like Cursor.ai without the employer's knowledge. It certainly isn't just about curiosity, but people are just trying to stay competitive. Obviously, there's demand for high productivity, and so any tools that we can use, people are going to find ways to use them. Now, we all know that companies are slow to adopt and may have not formally put out procedures. One employee mentioned in this article said they used AI to draft emails or reports pretty quickly, quoting that it saved them hours each week. And I will add the link to this article in the show notes. And yet these same employees that use these tools, at least in the article, say they haven't informed their manager that they're using them for fear of backlash or misunderstanding, or obviously not being able to use the tools any longer. So now what is behind the employer's hesitation, causing, in some cases, the employee's frustration? Why do we have the secrecy? So this article points to many organizations being hesitant to adopt AI due to concerns about data security, ethical implications. This caution, while certainly understandable, can lead to a disconnect between management and staff. Employees, on the other hand, feel the pressure to perform and see the AI tools as a tool to meet ever-increasing expectations. The lack of clear guidelines or open discussions about AI used in the workplace certainly only exacerbates the issue. So I will tell you a personal anecdote. I work in the consulting space. I will go in either under a bigger company like a Deloitte or a PwC or another larger consulting company. Now, the case I'm going to talk about did not involve any of those consulting companies that I just named, but a situation where once we started working with the end client, the expectation was by the consulting company that some AI tools could be used. Now, that being said, the contract or the statement of work did not mention the use of any AI tools at all. So when we got around to talking to the client about using AI for some basic things like transcribing meeting notes and pulling out to-dos and some things that I'm starting to consider pretty basic, they wanted no part of it, and they certainly didn't have the AI tools in use on their own. And they made it clear that we were not to feed any of their data into any of the consulting company's tools as well. Now, that gets me to my second thing, is these AI tools, they become really, really good. And the frustration that we used to have maybe even 18 months ago about data limits and token issues, typically with a paid ChatGPT account, are largely gone. Now, I found with using even this bigger consulting company's AI tools, they were severely limited in what they could do. Now, I'm sure you could go through many layers of approval and get better tools, but in this particular project, the end client was not going to allow us to use those tools anyway, so we didn't go down that path. So I think you have at least two lessons learned there. Is number one, if you are going to be, especially if you're in the consulting business, if you're going to be using AI tools to deliver your services, that better be cleared by the end client. At least in this case, they absolutely did not want to be using these AI tools. They were afraid that it was going to impact their ISO certifications, and it was just a no-go. Issue number two, the tools that were available through this third-party consulting company just were not very robust. So I think they were using Microsoft Copilot. So I would love to have a larger conversation about this. If you're hitting this in your world in HR technology, HRIS, if you're in the consulting side of it. So if you're willing to come on and have a conversation about it, or you've got some other questions you want answered, certainly let me know. So really, my perspective with this situation underscores a broader theme in the workplace that obviously there needs to be adaptability, open communication. Certainly as technology evolves, so too must the policies and the attitudes. Certainly by acknowledging the benefits and challenges of AI, organizations can create a more inclusive and hopefully forward-thinking environment. To wrap it up, three key takeaways from today's discussion. So number one, employees are using AI tools, probably covertly, to enhance productivity. It shouldn't be a surprise at this point. So it's highlighting a gap between technological capabilities and organizational policies. Number two, employers' reluctance to embrace AI stems from certainly valid concerns, but can lead to missed opportunities and certainly some employee dissatisfaction as we all start to understand how these tools can improve our work lives. Number three, an open dialogue should be had. Clear policies are essential for integrating AI into the workplace, hopefully in a responsible and effective way. Again, if you have comment on this subject or would be willing to come on the podcast to talk about it in your organization, don't have to get specific, but just in general, we would certainly appreciate that. Again, reach out to me at troy.wallace@HRISCareers.com. Certainly let me know if you like this trimmed down short episode. I didn't do a long introduction or the theme music or any of that. Again, would love to hear from you. I appreciate you being here. Until next time, we'll talk to you all later.
Here we go.